All right, Mark. We got a lot of Apple news to talk about today.
We do have a lot of Apple news. But before we talk about that, I just want to welcome everybody for joining us to this another weekly episode. So if you're new to this podcast, it's myself and Shashank. So I'm Mark, and Shashank was the guy you first heard. We both live in the South Bay in California. Some may call it Silicon Valley. And we run a meetup where we talk to a lot of people just from working on all kinds of cool stuff. So like we talk to people even at Apple who are working on generative AI things, and they all come to our meetup. So we made this podcast to try to make it so that we could share the conversation that we're having with people to you guys, and also just kind of show our opinions around like the news. So anyways, yeah, Shashank, new Apple announcements. So yeah, pretty cool stuff, huh?
I think it's okay. I think it was about time. Nothing mind-blowing, but a lot of really cool features.
Yeah. So first of all, the name.
Yeah.
It looks like
they've rebranded.
Yeah. So it's so like we are the Gen AI Meetup podcast. Now that AI, we weren't actually specific like what that AI was. So traditionally, most people would think AI means artificial intelligence, but Apple just stole that word, and now they're like, oh no, it's not artificial intelligence, it's Apple intelligence. So now it's like, come on, every time people say AI, they're gonna be thinking Apple intelligence, not artificial intelligence. They literally just stole the word.
I mean, that would really be something. Like 5-10 years down the line, if someone says AI and people think Apple intelligence, that means like Apple has really taken over the world.
See, but honestly, they might.
Their stock did overtake NVIDIA, I think. Now they're back to number 2, right behind Microsoft as the world's biggest company. Yeah.
Well, so it's like
second.
For example, you know the word podcast came from?
Where?
The iPod.
Oh.
Yeah.
I do remember podcasts were only on iTunes way back when.
Right. So when Apple made podcasts, because I think it was Apple who made kind of the first podcast directory.
Yeah.
And then they sort of opened up to the world. But yeah, the word podcast comes from the iPod. So it's like, it's happened in the past. Therefore, it could happen in the future. Now, podcast, I don't think actually existed as a word. Like AI has been around for like a long time, but like it's not like a crazy thing to think, where maybe a lot of people just don't think about AI, and a lot of people have iPhones. I mean, like there's like over 1 billion people who have, I think, an iPhone, right? So they may just say like, oh, AI is Apple intelligence. They might just like steal the word, and then we have to call it like machine learning or something.
Yeah, they do have a history of doing this with a bunch of their technology. I know when the first really high resolution displays came out on the phone, it just looked like butter. You couldn't see the pixels, and they called it Retina display. And they do that with a bunch of things.
Is butter a good thing for a display? I just imagine it's be like really blurry.
It's smooth. It's not janky.
Oh, okay.
It's not stuttery. You can't see like the frames like jumping. It's just so smooth.
Yeah.
They renamed their graphics engine called Metal for their to develop games on their platforms, both iOS, Mac, and yeah, now we have Apple Intelligence. I think I kind of see what they're trying to do with this. AI is cool, but it also worries a lot of people. It's like, oh, is this gonna steal my data? Is this gonna give me garbage information and just hallucinate and make up random facts that isn't real? So they're trying to rebrand AI and make it more trustworthy, make it safer. Most of the presentation tried to focus on their private cloud and all the security measures that they're taking to make sure that your data doesn't get leaked to any of these big companies, ChatGPT, maybe Google if they start working with the Gemini models. And they even said their servers. Like Apple doesn't know about your data, which is kind of weird because Apple has your data.
Well, I think they're sending it to OpenAI now.
No, they're not.
Oh, I thought they were.
So yeah, we can try to get into the nitty gritty of this. So I think on a high level, they try to do most of the AI processing on device, either on your latest Mac or latest iPhone, which is right now only iPhone 15 Pro Max, because these on-device language models need a fast enough processor. So that's only the top tier latest iPhone. So all of this is happening on device. When you summarize stuff, when you generate text, generate images, emojis, whatever it is, all of it is happening on device, except if it can't process whatever task that you're trying to do on device, it'll send it to like they call it private cloud to process this AI, which is, I saw like the chart, the architecture diagram for how they design this system, and it's like multiple layers of security, anonymity, and it's hidden even from Apple, which, so all of this hoopla, I think, warrants a rebranding.
Yeah. I think that, one thing that is interesting about Apple, before we even just talk about like the announcement and like the things that they're going to do, but because I think that like, the actual stuff they announced isn't necessarily super interesting compared to like, I think we've seen it all in like other products. But like where it's kind of interesting, I think, for Apple is Apple's whole business model is selling devices. And that's really, kind of where they make their money. They make, sure, plenty of money on services as well. I mean, they have things like Apple Music.
It's growing.
Right.
It's growing.
They have like Apple Fitness, Apple News,
music, TV.
Right. Like, so they've got all these things, but
iTunes has been around for a while.
For sure. But I think that like kind of Apple's sort of
not to mention App Store, which is the biggest marketplaces, one of the biggest marketplaces.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Apart from Amazon.
Well, different marketplaces. Yeah, different. So I think that, one of Apple's kind of like core competencies is building the hardware, and they also have kind of complete vertical integration. And I don't know if there's really any other company in the world that has as much control over the complete and total supply chain that Apple does, right? So Apple is going to design their own chips. They have their own hardware that they build. They build the operating system and like all the software that's on top of it. Plus, they own, they can keep everything within their own sort of like a special walled garden. Plus all the products, they all talk with each other. So even if, we've seen these features before, each of the features kind of exist on other devices, maybe in their own silo. So for example, if I have, let's say ChatGPT, and I have that on, it's going to be an app on my phone, right? So, OpenAI, they don't control my phone, right? Like all they have is the app on the phone with the permissions that the app has. Like if it's on Android, if it's on iPhone, like an individual app has less control over the phone than what the operating system would have, right? And then like if you control the hardware on the phone, like you have even more control, right? So like, Apple owns it like from end to end, and they build everything almost like purpose built. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that even though it's the same feature, I would expect that the feature will be better baked in to the operating system. And because it's baked into the operating system, they will be able to take advantage of all of their hardware completely, right? So like they can make it run at like a higher, they can make sure that their app takes like more processor if it needs to. They can maybe make like a separate chip for this. They can have more permissions that other apps couldn't have. They could make this run in things that the other apps wouldn't even be allowed to. So like, for example, if you want to have something take like full advantage of the camera, regular apps can't do that, but if they have their own chip, they can. So I think with Apple, they will be able to leverage these Gen AI features like no other company in the world really can.
I agree with you for the most part. I was nodding this whole time in the background, except for the fact that there are two other companies. So Apple, yes. Google builds their own software and a lot of their own hardware. And Microsoft, which is, it has the oldest operating system in the world. Maybe, well, actually, no. I think Apple had Mac OS, but, that went through multiple iterations. Anyway, Microsoft, very old company, has been building their OS software for a while. Recently started building their own chips as well. They focused on their ARM-based Windows chip. But I guess in contrast, Microsoft doesn't have a phone. They tried that for a while, failed miserably. Google does have a phone, their own phone. They do have their own laptop, but the market share just isn't there for the laptop. I don't think Chrome OS install base is nearly as much as Mac OS in recent years, even though it's much cheaper. And with the Google Pixel phone, it's amazing. Reviewers love it. It's so cheap, but I think it is maybe 10% of the volume in terms of sales compared to iPhone. Maybe even like a fraction of that, even lower. But even if Google builds their own hardware and software, I've worked at Google hardware products for a while, Nest, Cast devices, and we do need to think about having third-party partners like Lenovo, Samsung, whatever, build devices that work with the Google ecosystem. And that adds a lot of overhead when building software for our hardware products, because we need to think about, okay, make this standardized enough so that another vendor can like plug it in and access these core APIs and so on. And we also haven't been doing hardware for a while, Google. So I think even though Microsoft and Google can build similar products, I mean, Microsoft was beat Apple to this with Microsoft Copilot, the Windows Copilot, the Office 360 Copilot, and being able to access all of your data on these devices. I think they even added a little Copilot button on the new Surface laptops that maybe runs on device, but probably also talks to OpenAI because they have a really good relationship. I think these two other companies are also trying to do it really well. And yes, I agree that having fully vertically integrated software, hardware is amazing, because then I think we've noticed how NVIDIA has really taken over this AI world by building really good chips that can run these models really quickly. And I think Apple is another company that is building chips that run these models really quickly, except not on servers really far away. It's just closer to the edge in the hands of physical users. It's a really interesting position.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I agree with what you're saying. It's true that Microsoft and Google both make their hardware. I mean, there's a few companies out there that are going to make like the hardware and the software, right? So, for example, Amazon makes its own hardware as well and writes off this software, right? But I think, kind of as you touched on, I just want to like expand upon that part a little bit, where you said that with Google products, you need to think about like other vendors, right? So like, you think like Microsoft, sure, Microsoft makes Windows, which is arguably one of like the most used, if not the most used operating system in the world. I don't know if they're number one, but they're definitely up there. And you're going to see a lot of computers being sold with Windows on it. But the thing is like there are other companies that make Windows hardware. So like I could buy a Dell, I could buy an HP, I could buy a Lenovo, right?
Just for context, Windows is like 80% of the market share. Chrome OS is 10%. Mac OS is a surprising 7.5.
Really? I didn't realize that Chrome OS was higher.
This was a few years ago, 2021.
Huh. Okay. Well, there we go. Yeah. So, anyways, yes, like I mean, Windows is huge, right? But they need to make sure that their stuff works on other devices made by other companies. Plus, Windows is known for not breaking things. So Microsoft is really good at backwards compatibility, which is fantastic because if you have a really old computer, it'll probably still run and get security updates. Like, I mean, there are computers running like, I think still Windows XP. So like kind of out in the wild, right? And Windows XP came out, what, like 20 years ago or something? I don't know. It's been a while. But Apple, they will break things pretty frequently. Like, they are not worried about backward compatibility, because the thing is, they don't really open up to the world. Like, Apple has a lot less open source products than the rest of the companies. And I think there probably are some like open source products that Apple are working on. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But I know for a fact, for example, like Google, they make Android. Android, is used everywhere, right? Like, you're going to see it on Google phones, sure. So they own it. But like, you're also seeing Samsung and LG and, I don't know, there's just a bunch of different, like OnePlus, you're going to see it on a bunch of different, vendors. So you have to make things, cognizant of those vendors. You don't want to break them. Go ahead.
So if we talk about, if we include mobile and the OS market share, Android is at the top with like 40-something%, and then Windows at 27%, and then iOS at 17%. So
wait, Windows is running on phones?
I don't know if we just talk about all OSs, including PCs and mobile, because if you want to use AI on physical devices, you're going to use it both on your phone, on your laptop, everywhere. And the number one most popular OS is Android.
It makes sense because it's
everywhere. So much Samsung phones, so many Chinese brands right now, a lot of cheaper models. A lot of the developing country is running on Android phones.
Yeah. So I think that, Google doesn't want to just break everybody else in the world. But like Apple doesn't care because they don't have that problem, right? They just own all their hardware. If you're going to buy something with iOS, it's going to be from Apple. So they can just have like complete and total control over that stack. And I think because of that, they're going to be able to make it something that like is better integrated than any other company on earth, I would say.
So I agree with that. That's a solid point. Hardware is very important. Vertical integration is very important. Another big piece of like where data goes is all of these apps, all these servers that store user information. So in terms of the largest apps, we have obviously Google, again, with YouTube, Google Search, Gmail, which has a lot of user data. Apple, on the other hand, doesn't have so many cross-platform software services that people rely on. I don't know many people who use Apple Mail. I think, if anything, maybe iMessage with all these users, chat history is probably the biggest source of user data for Apple.
I don't know if they're looking at that, though. And also...
No. I mean, Gmail isn't looking at people's emails either. I'm just saying to leverage personal information to provide useful AI insights. So we have these companies. I think Microsoft has a lot of cloud services, Office, Documents. I don't know if it's like Hotmail or Live.com. I forget.
Yeah. Outlook,
yes.
Yeah.
Outlook email addresses with a lot of data. And all these social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, which can plug in AI into all of these chat portals, social media platforms, and provide useful insights. So I think if we compare all of these things, Google is comparable to Apple in what it can leverage in terms of user data and software, hardware, vertical integration at the very top with like the user's data to provide cool insights.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. So maybe we should start getting into like what Apple actually announced. I feel like we just danced around it, but they did so much. Some cool stuff. So I'm going through their website now, and one thing they announced is priority notifications. So that's pretty cool. So it seems like priority notifications are going to take all those annoying notifications that you get, and they are going to rearrange them. So just like the most important ones are at the top. So for example, maybe a Slack message from your boss will be the highest priority, and then maybe like, I don't know, your delivery maybe be slightly lower, and then an ad might be the lowest.
I think we can skip a bunch of these announcements because a lot of these features were really cool, but not necessarily leveraging AI. Bunch of things like being able to rearrange your app icons, not from top to down, or you can just place icons at the bottom and have a little bit of space. Theming, changing the icons a different color, making it a dark theme, which Android has had for a while. A lot of nifty things in like SMSing, where like messaging, where you can have animation effects. If you say like, oh, this car drives really bouncy, and the board bouncy is going to jump around. A lot of interesting software features. But I think for the theme of this podcast, there's a lot of Apple intelligence features, starting with the ability to use on-device models to summarize, proofread, and generate text for you on all of these Apple devices.
Yeah, and that's incredibly exciting, I think.
I think it's very useful.
Useful and also just exciting, right? Because it's going to be something that's just there, that you don't have to like go and install separately. Because I think that, just because like a software is there doesn't mean that people are going to use it. It's like, I guess my point is like, if I want to use OpenAI, I have to like actually like download the app, or I have to go to ChatGPT's like website, right? Like OpenAI's website. But with the Apple things, it's just gonna be there. I don't have to do anything. It's just like, I'm gonna get it, so I'm gonna use it because it's default.
That's true. Like the Google Messages quote unquote app, even though it's like something built into every basic phone, has one of the largest install bases of any apps, in the billions, just because every single Android phone comes with a Messages app to send text. So the Apple Messages app is getting a lot of nifty AI features, which will be cool. One of which is image generation. You can both generate random images and gen emojis. So I think they had animojis, create like animal avatars when they were trying to lean into the AR, VR hype, to create like an AR representation of your face while you were FaceTiming or something, and that moved around and had a similar facial expression to you. Now they have generative images that you can make emojis out of.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think Facebook had something. Didn't they have like the Memojis or something like that? I'm trying to remember.
I thought that was an avatar in like their VR world.
Was it? I know, like, I think Nintendo, like with the Wii, they had those.
No, that is Apple emoji.
Oh, then what did Facebook had? I think Facebook had something very similar, in like Messenger and whatnot. I can't remember. Anyways, not that important, but I think that's kind of cool. Like, I mean, it's minor, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun.
The image generation, although I'm not sure how cool it is, I feel like people will kind of get tired of it. You can't generate any arbitrary image. There's a couple styles that you can choose from, like cartoony, artistic, and it's very low fidelity. I'm assuming all of this is running on device. There's a threshold to what they can generate today. Obviously, with each iPhone, it's going to keep getting better, but it's nowhere near the quality of Midjourney, not even as good as OpenAI's DALL-E.
Yeah. Also, did you see about the calculator?
Honestly, that was the best feature, I think. I was like so excited. I was like, wow, this is really cool.
I know, that's really cool. So I don't know if you could maybe explain better than
Sure. So I remember like Marcus Brownlee. He's like a popular tech reviewer on YouTube. Goes by the handle MKBHD, and he was like, Apple, it's been, I don't know, close to a decade or something since the iPad came out, and you don't have a calculator app for the iPad. When are you gonna make an app? When are you gonna make a calculator app? And I think Craig Federighi, or someone, maybe one of the heads at Apple's software team, said that, we only do things when it makes sense for us to really revolutionize the field. And with this new calculator app, they actually did an amazing job. So it is, you can think of it like less of a calculator and more of a smart tutor when you're taking notes, who's helping you autocomplete the answers for really complex math equations. So they combine a bunch of really traditional AI ML to recognize your handwriting, understand like a quadratic equation that you're trying to solve, 5x plus 3y equals blank, and then you have other variables like 3x plus 2y equals 5, and then it just combines all of these different things, does some calculations in the back, and then boom, it spits out an answer. You do like 20 raised to the 50th power, and then boom, it'll give you an answer. Put a slash and do divided by 4, and then it'll change the answer in real time. So this kind of makes me wish that I was back in school or something to be doing like really cool linear algebra. That this calculator app magically helps me get the answers.
Yeah, I mean, now nobody I think has really tried this yet because Apple hasn't actually released it into the wild yet. But man, if it's like the demo showed, wild. So
it is really
like
cool.
I mean, I feel like with math, I really like to see things kind of visualized. Like I'm not like great at like visualizing numbers, right?
Yeah.
And I think it could even do like graphs and stuff, right?
It does. So you highlight maybe like a quadratic equation that we were talking about, and I don't know, a little tooltip comes up, and it's like, do you want to make a graph out of this? Boom, you click it, and then it plots it. And the crazy thing is you change the parameters of the equation, and the graph will adjust in real time. I was like, wow, this is really beautiful Apple software, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's really cool. So, like, I think a lot of mathematicians, they'll do work on, like, paper or, like, a blackboard or whatever. But now I could see people just, like, buying iPads to just do math. Like, that's incredibly exciting. And I wonder if maybe, like, because it'll be really easy to, like, graph it and, like, draw, I wonder if we'll start seeing this kind of help compound technology because, maybe mathematicians, they will be able to like iterate faster on their ideas and their theorems. And then maybe in the near-ish future, next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of just like maybe more papers, more math being discovered. And then because of that, we're all going to win, being like some sort of like abundant future. And this, I think, is like kind of like a small step towards that. I think like, as an aside, getting off the topic slightly, but progress is exponential because we build stuff with all of our current technology, right? So it's like
everything that came before.
Exactly.
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. So it's like, let's say, I don't know, 10,000 years ago, and we're all just like living in caves or whatever. And like all we have is like some like rocks. It's like the technology that you have is like not much, right? Like all I can do is like, maybe like rub some sticks together, get fire. I don't know, maybe like take the rock, sharpen it down with another rock, and then maybe like put an axe out of that, and then I can go and maybe use that as like some like primitive tools. But it's like, imagine if the caveman had ChatGPT, a chainsaw, and I don't know, like electricity. It's like they would be able to create like so much more, right? And we have so much more stuff, which helps us to iterate even faster and make even more new cool tools. So incredibly exciting. And this is just another cool tool that I'm just really happy that the world is going to get soon.
I absolutely agree. And especially with something like math, you can look at the numbers and solve these equations all day long. But to have breakthroughs, you need to kind of like have a mental model, and having graphs, being able to visualize things and not get lost in the numbers really helps.
Yeah.
So before we kind of run out of time, I think one really cool or like the high level takeaway that I had from this announcement was this is a company that has, for a lot of people, at least in the US, most of your data, you're interacting with this company's devices, and it would be magical if they just took all of that information about you across all these platforms and did really useful stuff. So one example that they gave, I think it was like Tim Apple, as Trump used to call him. So Tim Cook, he talked about really
the CEO of Apple.
The CEO of Apple talked about a use case where, let's say actually it might have been Craig Federighi, but regardless, they gave an example where, let's say you have a bunch of meetings at work scheduled, and your let's say your friend, family member, daughter, whoever messages you, and they're like, "Oh, this thing is running late. Can you come pick me up at this time instead?" And Apple Intelligence, the AI, this new form of AI, would look at the context of your calendar, look at the messages that are coming through, and contextualize all of this data to give you an alert saying that, hey, this thing is running late. It's going to conflict with your existing meeting. Maybe you should try to reschedule. To do all of these useful things across all these different contexts, as only Apple can do, along with maybe Microsoft or Google, is something that I've been waiting for a while. I was like so excited when Microsoft Copilot came out, and I'm like, Apple, what the hell, man? Like, what's going on? When are you gonna do something with this? I even bought the domain Mac Copilot or copilotmac.com. I still have it.
Did you?
I did, because I wanted to build something like this. Microsoft was steamrolling ahead, and Apple was just so quiet. Siri was still the same. We hadn't even heard any rumors. I think they were still working on the Apple Car at that time.
Wow.
I was like, what is going to happen?
I wonder if you could sell that domain name and get Apple to pay you out on it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I was actually thinking of building something like this, similar to Copilot, to do something useful. We had way back when maybe 10, 15 years ago, when search was still really maturing as a feature, as an industry, where, we had autocomplete and smart autocomplete, where we had, the first versions of this transformer that looked at the context of where you're trying to type and suggest helpful things. You had the Mac, what do you call it? Spotlight.
Spotlight, that's the thing when you like
search bar,
but like it comes in the center of the screen. It allows you
correct. It just pops up, and allows you to search for anything on your computer. But it was very limited, so a lot of these companies started building add-ons to do like a better search across your computer, integrate web results. And I was like, man, if Apple's not going to do it, I kind of want to build something that builds these generative AI tools into your Mac, pulls in context from your file system, your emails, your desktop, messages, whatever. But yeah, Apple is finally catching up. It's exciting.
Yeah, kudos to you, Apple. We're really excited about this announcement. So, Shashank, does it make you want to buy any new Apple hardware?
I mean, I have a Google Pixel phone right now, and it's really making me want to switch.
Oh, really?
I was a diehard Apple fan for, I don't know, like more than a decade. I think I went up till like the iPhone 11 or something, and then I started working at Google, and I was like, oh, maybe I should try out Google hardware, feel the ecosystem, from within. And I love the Google products. The thing that really made me stay with Pixel phones for the last 5 generations, apart from the fact that I work at Google, is how well they built amazing software, AI features on top of, not to offend anyone, but mediocre hardware. Because Apple is amazing hardware, but the AI features were god-awful compared to Google a few years ago. But now they have a lot of the same features that Google has. So they have live transcription. I think it's on device too. You can transcribe like calls that you have. It does notify the other party. So, to maintain privacy and make sure, that you're not recording someone else without their knowledge. and being able to visualize, a transcript of someone else as you're talking to them. I think that's really cool, especially if you're trying to call like help centers and navigate through a phone tree and things like that. So yeah, a lot of AI features with secure privacy and data protection in mind, and integrated throughout the whole ecosystem. It's really exciting.
It is very exciting. And now both of us don't work for Apple. So I know this kind of sounded like a big Apple ad, but yeah, just completely, we're just two guys who just are really excited about what they're doing right now.
I mean, like you said, this is something that's going to push the industry forward, help people to do cool stuff. And eventually, I think all the other competitors, Microsoft, Google, are going to take keys from Apple. Take the really cool features that people love and, build it into their own products. Because why not?
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, Shashank, I think we're about out of time. But anyways, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Until next time.